I, Amanda, 29 years old, stood frozen in my parents' living room as my father handed my brother Kyle a check for $230,000 while proudly announcing he'd always been their real success story. I felt the blood drain from my face as Dad turned to me, his expression hardening. "Unlike our perpetual disappointment," he added, gesturing in my direction. Mom nodded in agreement, completely dismissing everything I'd worked for. Little did they know their failure daughter would soon teach them the true meaning of family loyalty. What happened next changed everything. Before I continue my story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to join me on this journey of family betrayal and sweet justice. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. Growing up in the shadow of my brother Kyle was something I became accustomed to early on. Despite being a straight-A student who joined every academic club available, my achievements were always secondary to Kyle's. My parents created a hierarchy in our home that was impossible to ignore. Even as a child, when I was 8, I won the regional spelling bee after practicing for months. My parents promised they'd be there, sitting in the front row. I scanned the audience repeatedly before my turn, but their seats remained empty. Later that night, they returned home celebrating Kyle's participation trophy from a baseball tournament. "Sorry we missed your little contest, Amanda," Mom said, barely looking my way. Kyle needed us there for moral support. I went to bed clutching my first-place trophy, crying silently. On my 13th birthday, I came home to find the celebration postponed because Kyle had an impromptu soccer practice. "We'll do your birthday tomorrow," Dad said casually. We never did. When Kyle turned 13 just 3 months later, they threw him a surprise party with 30 kids and hired a local band. The summer before high school, I was accepted into an elite science program for gifted students. When I showed Mom the acceptance letter, her response was, "That's nice, honey, but don't get too involved with extracurriculars. Your grades might suffer, and you're not naturally smart like Kyle." This, despite my perfect GPA and Kyle's C average. These patterns continued throughout high school. While I joined debate teams, edited the school newspaper, and maintained perfect grades, my parents attended Kyle's every football game but missed my debate championship. The message was clear. His activities mattered. Mine were afterthoughts. When college applications came around, I applied for every scholarship possible, knowing my parents had been saving for Kyle's education, not mine. "Kyle needs a good school to make connections," Dad explained when I asked about college savings. "You're book smart, you'll be fine anywhere." I received a partial scholarship to State University but still needed significant financial help. My parents contributed exactly $1,500 toward my education, the equivalent of one semester's books. Meanwhile, they paid Kyle's full tuition at an expensive private university, where he maintained a 2.1 gigapascals. College was a constant struggle of balancing academics with survival. I worked as a barista opening shifts from 4:30 a.m. before classes, delivered food on weekends, and took online transcription jobs late into the night. Despite this grueling schedule, I maintained a 3.9 gigapascals in my business program, often studying on breaks or between shifts. My apartment was the cheapest I could find, with unreliable heating and noisy neighbors, but it was all I could afford while sending myself to college. Meanwhile, Kyle's college experience was entirely different. He lived in a luxury off-campus apartment my parents paid for, drove the new car they bought him for his 19th birthday, and received monthly allowances that exceeded my entire semester's food budget. When he failed classes, my parents hired tutors. When he wanted to take spring break trips to Cancun, they funded those too. College wasn't a challenge for Kyle. It was an extended vacation occasionally interrupted by classes he barely attended. Despite everything, I graduated with honors, earning a business degree with a specialization in digital marketing. My graduation ceremony was scheduled for a Saturday in May, and for weeks beforehand, I reminded my parents about the date. "We wouldn't miss it, Amanda," Mom assured me, though her tone lacked conviction. The night before graduation, I received a text from my father. "Kyle's team made the divisional baseball playoffs. Game's tomorrow at 1. We need to be there for him. Can you send us photos from your graduation?" The ceremony was at 11 a.m. They could have attended both events. They chose not to. I sat among thousands of graduates the next day, surrounded by families celebrating together. When my name was called, there was no cheering section, no proud parents taking photos. I walked across that stage to silence, accepted my diploma with tears welling in my eyes, and returned to my seat. After the ceremony, I watched other families embracing, taking photos, celebrating this milestone. I stood alone, diploma in hand, taking selfies that I never shared with anyone. That evening, my phone rang. It was Mom, excited about Kyle's game. He hit a double. Everyone was cheering. "Oh, how was your thing? Did you get your certificate?" Not even knowing I'd received a diploma. Not a certificate. Not asking about honors or my achievements. Just a cursory afterthought. That night, alone in my apartment, something shifted inside me. The pain crystallized into resolve. I decided that I would build a life that couldn't be dismissed, achievements that couldn't be diminished, and I would do it without their support, approval, or involvement. I would limit my contact with my family and focus on building my own success, on my own terms. This wasn't just the first betrayal. It was the moment I realized that no achievement would ever be enough to earn my parents' approval. But it wouldn't be the last time they showed me exactly where I stood in the family hierarchy. My entry into the professional world wasn't the smooth transition I'd hoped for after college. Despite my excellent grades and internship experience, I landed at Meridian Marketing, a mid-sized agency known for two things: securing big clients and burning through junior staff. My direct supervisor, Victoria, embodied the worst stereotypes of toxic management. She took credit for my ideas during client meetings, assigned me impossible deadlines, and criticized my work in front of colleagues. "This is the real world, Amanda," she'd say with a smirk when I stayed past 9 p.m. revising presentations. "Not everyone gets a trophy just for showing up." The irony that I'd never been the one receiving trophies for mere participation wasn't lost on me. The pay was barely enough to cover my rent and student loan payments, with little left over for savings. Many nights I survived on ramen noodles and discount grocery items approaching their expiration dates. My apartment was a studio in a questionable neighborhood, the only place I could afford without roommates. I needed personal space to work on what was becoming my obsession: learning everything possible about digital marketing trends and strategies. Despite the difficult circumstances, I was absorbing valuable lessons daily. I learned client management by watching how accounts were won and lost. I developed technical skills by volunteering for the digital projects no one else wanted. I studied analytics reports late into the night, identifying patterns others missed. Victoria might have made my days miserable, but she unwittingly gave me a masterclass in what not to do as a leader. After 18 months at Meridian, working 70-hour weeks for minimal pay, I began noticing a trend in our client feedback. Small businesses, local restaurants, boutiques, service providers were consistently unhappy with the agency's one-size-fits-all approach. They were paying premium rates but receiving cookie-cutter strategies designed for bigger clients. I saw an opportunity. These small businesses needed personalized digital marketing that acknowledged their unique challenges and limited budgets. They needed someone who understood their constraints but could still deliver results. Over weekends and late nights, I researched the market gap extensively and developed a business model targeting specifically these underserved clients. For 3 months, I spent every non-working hour developing my business plan. I created sample campaigns, built a proof-of-concept website, and developed proprietary analytics templates that could track ROI for even the smallest marketing spend. I calculated exactly what I needed to launch: $15,000 for initial equipment, basic office space rental, software licenses, and 3 months of living expenses while I acquired the first clients. With only $3,200 in savings, the most I'd managed to accumulate despite extreme frugality, I needed external funding. Traditional banks wouldn't loan to a business without history, and I had no collateral. Reluctantly, I decided to approach my parents. Not for a handout, but for a proper business loan with terms, interest, and a repayment schedule. I prepared meticulously for the meeting. creating a comprehensive presentation with market analysis, competitive differentiation, and financial projections. I practiced my pitch until I could deliver it flawlessly. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to hope that my parents might see my potential. On a Sunday afternoon, I drove 2 hours to their suburban home, carrying my laptop and a printed business proposal in a professional portfolio. I'd even dressed in my best business attire, the single professional outfit I owned, carefully maintained for client meetings. "You want us to give you money?" Dad interrupted, barely 5 minutes into my presentation. He hadn't even looked at the financial projections showing how I'd repay the loan within 18 months. "Not give, Dad. Loan," I clarified. "With interest. I've calculated a fair rate that benefits you while allowing the business to—" "Amanda," Mom interjected with that patronizing tone I knew too well. "Wouldn't it be better to focus on getting a real career like Kyle? He's in pharmaceutical sales now. You know, company car, expense account, real benefits." I took a deep breath. This is a real career path. Digital marketing is one of the fastest growing sectors. And I've identified an underserved market segment with— "This looks like another one of your pipe dreams," Dad said, pushing away the business plan I'd spent months perfecting. First, it was that journalism phase in high school. Then the business degree instead of something practical. Now you want to take our money for some internet scheme? It's not a scheme. If you'd look at the projections, we've heard enough presentations from Kyle to know projections are just fancy guesswork, Mom said. His protein supplement business had beautiful charts too. And that realistic gym equipment venture last year. I froze. Gym equipment venture? You funded another of Kyle's businesses? The uncomfortable glance between my parents told me everything. It was a sure thing, Dad defended. Just had some supply chain issues. I packed up my presentation, a numbness spreading through me. "How much did you give him for that one?" "That's not really your—" "How much?" I repeated, my voice unnaturally calm. 50,000, Dad finally admitted. But that was different. Kyle had experience from his previous ventures. His previous failed ventures, I corrected. That you also funded. The drive home was a blur. Once in my apartment, I collapsed on my bed, emotionally exhausted. My phone buzzed with a text from Kyle. "Heard you were asking Mom and Dad for money. Tough break, sis. Not everyone has the entrepreneurial gene. Maybe stick to your cubicle job?" I called him immediately. "When did they give you the 50 grand for the gym equipment business?" "What month?" "Whoa, chill out. Like 3 weeks ago?" "Why?" 3 weeks ago. The same time period I'd first mentioned needing a business loan to my mother. They'd had the money all along. They just didn't think I was worth the investment. That night was the lowest point of my adult life. I questioned everything. My abilities, my business idea, even my worth as a person. If my own parents had so little faith in me after seeing my work ethic and achievements throughout my life, perhaps I was deluding myself. Maybe I was exactly what they thought. A disappointment, a failure, someone unworthy of support. The second betrayal cut deeper than the first. It wasn't just about favoritism anymore. It was a direct statement that my brother's repeated failures were more worth investing in than my carefully planned success. They weren't just choosing him over me. They were actively blocking my path while paving his with gold. I allowed myself exactly 1 week of depression after my parents' rejection. 7 days of questioning my worth, crying into my pillow, and contemplating giving up on my business dream. On the 8th day, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt before. If no one would believe in me, I would simply have to believe in myself. Completely. And without reservation. My apartment neighbor Sophia was the first person who helped pull me out of my despair. Finding me sitting on the stairwell one evening, she invited me in for dinner. Real food. Not my usual ramen. When I explained what happened with my parents, her response changed everything. "Amanda, do you know how many successful businesses started with almost nothing? My father came to this country with $200 in his pocket and built a chain of restaurants. He didn't need anyone's permission or approval. Neither do you." My college friend Marcus, now working in finance, reviewed my business plan the following weekend. "This is solid, Amanda. Better than 90% of the pitches I see. Your parents missed a good investment opportunity. His validation meant everything. Even my coworker Danny, after hearing about my situation, offered support. Use our office after hours to meet your first clients. Victoria leaves at 6 p.m. sharp. No one will know. With this small but vital support network, I developed a new approach. I would bootstrap my business with whatever I could scrape together. I applied for a personal loan from a credit union, just $5,000 with a high interest rate, but it was something. I sold my car and committed to public transportation, adding another $3,800 to my startup fund. I moved to an even smaller apartment, cutting my rent by $200 monthly. Every dollar saved went directly into my business fund. During this time, I maintained my full-time position at Meridian, but my real work began at 7 p.m. each evening. I built my website myself using online tutorials. I created marketing materials during lunch breaks. I developed service packages that required minimal initial investment but could deliver tangible results to clients. My first client was Bob's Bistro, a family restaurant struggling to compete with trendy new eateries in the area. "I can't afford fancy marketing," Bob told me when I approached him. "That's exactly why you need me," I replied, and outlined a digital strategy that would cost 1/10 of what traditional agencies charged. The first campaign was a disaster. I miscalculated the target audience demographics, and the promotional event I organized had minimal attendance. Bob was understandably upset. Rather than making excuses, I stayed up for 48 straight hours analyzing what went wrong, redesigning the entire campaign, and implementing it at no additional cost. The second attempt brought a 32% increase in weekend business. "Whatever you did this time, it worked," Bob said, genuinely impressed. "My daughter said you were posting at 3 a.m. Do you ever sleep?" "Sleep is for people without something to prove," I answered, only half joking. Bob referred me to 2 other local businesses, and slowly my client list grew. Each success brought new challenges, managing multiple accounts while still working full-time, dealing with cash flow issues when clients paid late, learning to negotiate contracts that protected my interests. There were nights I slept only 3 hours, weekends when I didn't leave my apartment, and moments when the physical toll made me question everything. I developed tension headaches. My diet consisted mainly of coffee and whatever I could eat at my desk, and my social life became non-existent. But the results were undeniable. By month 4, I had 6 steady clients. By month 6, I needed to develop systems to manage the workload. At month 8, I hired my first contract help, a college student who could handle basic social media posting for 10 hours weekly. And at 9 months, I finally achieved the milestone I'd been working toward: enough consistent income to quit my job at Meridian. The day I submitted my resignation was one of the sweetest of my life. Victoria was visibly shocked. "You're leaving for a competitor?" she asked suspiciously. "No, I'm becoming one," I replied, handing her my newly printed business card. Her expression was worth every sleepless night. That evening, feeling triumphant, I made a decision that in retrospect was naive. I called my parents to share my success. Some part of me still craved their approval, still believed they might finally see my worth. "I quit my job today," I announced when Mom answered. "My business is doing well enough that I'm going full-time with it." "Oh, Amanda," she sighed. "Is that really wise? In this economy? Everyone needs job security. I have security. I have 12 clients on retainer and a waitlist starting to form." "Beginner's luck," Dad chimed in, apparently on speakerphone. "These small businesses you mentioned, they come and go. What happens when they all close down?" "They're not closing down, they're growing. Because of my strategies." "Well, Kyle's new venture is really taking off too," Mom interjected, changing the subject. "The investment your father and I made is already showing returns." "Really? What kind of returns?" I asked, knowing from past patterns that returns in Kyle's businesses usually meant hasn't completely failed yet. "Well, not financial returns yet," Dad admitted, "but he's making important connections, building the foundation." The conversation continued this way. My concrete achievements minimized, Kyle's vague potential exaggerated. When I hung up, I finally accepted a truth I'd been avoiding. My success or failure didn't actually matter to them. The narrative of Kyle as the star and Amanda as the disappointment was too deeply entrenched to be changed by something as trivial as actual results. This realization, painful as it was, proved liberating. I stopped seeking their approval and focused entirely on building my business. If they couldn't see my worth, the rest of the world eventually would. Over the next 2 years, my business, which I named Precision Digital, evolved from a one-woman operation into a legitimate agency. The growth wasn't overnight, but rather a series of strategic expansions based on proven success. 6 months after going full-time, I moved from my home office to a small commercial space. Nothing fancy, just 400 square feet in a converted industrial building. The rent stretched my budget, but having a professional address and a place to meet clients made a significant difference in how my business was perceived. My client base expanded beyond local restaurants and retail shops to include regional businesses seeking targeted digital campaigns. A successful strategy for a local craft brewery caught the attention of a distributor, which led to work with 3 similar businesses across the state. A real estate agent whose social media I transformed referred me to her entire office, then to the regional branch. By the 18-month mark, I hired my first full-time employee, Jessica, a recent marketing graduate with incredible design skills who had been working as a barista because she couldn't find a position in her field. I recognized in her the same hunger that had driven me. 2 months later, I brought on Marcus, a data analyst who could transform client metrics into actionable insights. The true breakthrough came when I developed what would become our signature approach, the precision method. Unlike traditional agencies that applied generic strategies across different businesses, we created hyper-targeted campaigns based on granular data analysis and local market conditions. Our campaigns cost less because they wasted nothing on irrelevant audiences. The results spoke for themselves. Clients reported ROI ranging from 300% to 700% on their marketing spend. As the business grew, so did I. The insecure girl desperate for parental approval gradually transformed into a confident business owner. I developed relationships with other entrepreneurs who understood the journey I was on. I joined professional organizations and eventually was asked to speak at a regional business conference about digital marketing for small businesses. My personal life improved as well. I moved to a comfortable apartment, started exercising regularly again, and even began dating after years of having no time for relationships. I met Daniel, another entrepreneur who ran a successful software development company, at a business networking event. He understood the demands of building something from nothing and never made me feel guilty for my dedication to my company. Throughout this period, I maintained minimal contact with my family, monthly phone calls with my mother, occasional text exchanges with Kyle, and holiday cards were the extent of our interaction. I made excuses to miss family gatherings, protecting myself from the inevitable comparisons and dismissals. But as Thanksgiving approached in my 3rd year of business, I decided it was time to reconnect. My company was undeniably successful now, with 8 employees, a proper office suite, and a client waitlist. I had recently been profiled in a business magazine as an entrepreneur to watch. Surely now, I thought, my parents would see me differently. I accepted the invitation to Thanksgiving dinner with a mix of hope and apprehension. I spent hours selecting thoughtful gifts and rehearsing casual ways to mention my business achievements without seeming boastful. Daniel offered to accompany me, but this was a journey I needed to make alone. The initial reception seemed promisingly warm. Mom hugged me at the door, commenting on how professional I looked. Dad actually put down his phone when I entered the living room, asking about my drive. Kyle was there with his girlfriend, Melissa, and he gave me a brotherly punch on the arm that felt almost affectionate. Several aunts, uncles, and cousins completed the family gathering. During appetizers, conversation flowed easily. I shared carefully curated stories about my business, emphasizing client successes rather than my own achievements. People seemed genuinely interested, asking questions about digital marketing trends and social media strategies. For a brief, shining moment, I felt like a valued member of the family. Then came dinner. As we settled around the table laden with traditional dishes, my father stood to make a toast. My heart lifted. Perhaps this would be the acknowledgement I'd worked so hard for. Today I'm thankful for family, Dad began, raising his glass. And I'm especially proud to announce some exciting news. Your mother and I have decided to make a significant investment in Kyle's newest venture, Premium Athletic Solutions. He turned to Kyle with unmistakable pride. Son, we believe in you and your vision. That's why we're providing $230,000 to ensure this business becomes the success we know it can be. The table erupted in congratulations while I sat frozen, my fork suspended halfway to my mouth. Kyle has always been our real success story, Dad continued, beaming. He has the natural business instinct that can't be taught. Then, almost as an afterthought, he glanced my way. Unlike our perpetual disappointment, who's playing with websites or whatever it is, the room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. Robert, my mother whispered. That's not appropriate. What? It's family. We can be honest, Dad replied. Amanda's always been book smart, but Kyle has real-world smarts. That's why we're backing a real business, not some internet scheme. Kyle at least had the decency to look uncomfortable, though the smug smile he tried to hide told me he wasn't entirely displeased with the situation. My internet scheme is generating seven-figure revenue, I said quietly, struggling to maintain composure. Anyone can claim numbers. Amanda. Dad dismissed. Kyle has tangible products. A warehouse. Distribution deals. All funded by you, I pointed out. We support success, Mom interjected, trying to smooth over the tension. Kyle's businesses have always shown promise. They've all failed, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Every single one. And you've funded all of them. That's business, Dad shrugged. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before the light bulb. Kyle is persistent. And I'm what? An immediate write-off? Despite actual, proven success? Don't be dramatic, Amanda. Mom sighed. Not everything is about you. I looked around the table at my relatives, searching for any ally, any acknowledgement of the injustice. My Aunt Jennifer avoided my eyes. Uncle Steve suddenly became very interested in his mashed potatoes. Cousins I'd grown up with stared at their plates. I placed my napkin beside my untouched turkey and stood up. Thank you for dinner. I need to leave now. You're overreacting, Dad called as I gathered my coat and purse. This is why we can't take you seriously. Too emotional for business. I walked out without another word, tears blurring my vision as I climbed into my car. The snow had started while we were eating, covering the roads with a treacherous layer of ice. I should have waited, should have called a rideshare, but all I could think about was escaping the suffocating disappointment of that house. 2 miles from my parents' home, on a curved road lined with trees, my car hit a patch of black ice. I remember the terrifying sensation of losing control, the car spinning, and then the sickening crunch as I hit a guardrail. I woke up in the hospital with a concussion, a broken wrist, and various cuts and bruises. The nurse explained that a passing motorist had called the ambulance. When I asked if my family had been notified, she confirmed they had hours ago. No one came. Not my father, mother, or Kyle. Not even a phone call to check if I was alive. The next day, when I was discharged, it was Daniel who drove 3 hours to pick me up after I finally called him. As he helped me into his car, handling me with gentle concern that made my throat tight with emotion, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Hope you're feeling better. Left your Christmas present on the porch. Merry early Christmas, since you probably won't come back for the holiday. That moment, lying in a hospital bed realizing no family member cared enough to check on me, followed by that dismissive text, was when something fundamental broke inside me. The hurt crystallized into resolve. I didn't just want to succeed anymore. I wanted them to recognize exactly what they had dismissed, devalued, and discarded. During my recovery, with my arm in a cast and forced to delegate more to my team, I had time to think, really think, about family, about business, and about justice. And slowly, methodically, a plan began to form in my mind. My recovery period provided an unexpected gift. Time to strategize. With my broken wrist limiting my ability to work hands-on, I was forced to step back and consider the bigger picture. both for my business and for my response to my family's betrayal. The first component of my plan came through my cousin, Emily. Though she'd remained silent during the Thanksgiving disaster, she called me a week after my accident, genuinely concerned about my well-being. During our conversation, she mentioned Kyle's new business in detail. "He's opening that high-end athletic equipment store," Emily explained. "Premium products for serious athletes, custom gear, personalized training programs, nutrition consultations. Your parents remortgaged their house to fund it." "They remortgaged their home?" I asked, genuinely shocked. "Yeah, plus cashed in some retirement accounts. Uncle Robert says it's going to be huge, though. They're projecting to break even within 6 months and start seeing major profits by year 2. I asked questions that seemed casual but were carefully calculated to understand Kyle's business model. Emily, happy to share family news, revealed that Kyle had leased an expensive retail location in the upscale Westfield Mall, signed exclusive contracts with several premium athletic brands, and was in the process of hiring image-appropriate staff, meaning attractive fitness models as sales associates. After our call, I asked Marcus, my data analyst, to research the high-end athletic equipment market in our region. His findings confirmed my suspicions. The market was already saturated with established brands. The location Kyle had chosen had seen 3 similar businesses fail in the past 5 years due to high overhead and insufficient customer base. "The business plan has major flaws," I told Daniel over dinner that night. "He's investing in expensive inventory that may not move. Staffing costs are excessive. And his marketing strategy, from what Emily described, is generic and outdated." "So he'll fail," Daniel shrugged. "Like his other ventures. Why does it matter to you now?" "Because this time, he's not just wasting my parents' money. He's risking their retirement, their home. And they're too blinded by their favoritism to see it." "What are you thinking?" Daniel asked, recognizing the look in my eyes. "I'm thinking it's time to show them what a real business strategy looks like. Rather than competing directly with Kyle's brick-and-mortar approach, I identified the true opportunity in the athletic market. Personalized online coaching and equipment recommendations based on individual needs and goals. No inventory overhead, no retail space costs, and a potentially national customer base rather than being limited to local foot traffic. I spent 2 weeks developing a comprehensive business plan for what would become Adaptive Athletics, a digital platform connecting athletes with custom training programs, equipment recommendations, and virtual coaching. The model would generate revenue through affiliate partnerships with equipment manufacturers, subscription coaching services, and a proprietary algorithm that matched athletes with the perfect gear for their specific needs. With my established track record, securing investment was considerably easier than my first venture. I created a pitch deck and approached legitimate investors rather than family. My first meeting was with Vortex Ventures, a firm specializing in digital startups. "Your track record with Precision Digital is impressive," said Catherine Winters, the lead investor. "You've demonstrated consistent growth and profitability in a competitive space." "This new venture leverages the same core competencies," I explained. "Data-driven personalization, digital-first approach, and scalable systems. The difference is the market vertical and the opportunity for national expansion." After 3 rounds of meetings and due diligence, Vortex offered $175,000 in funding in exchange for 12% equity, significantly less than the $230,000 my parents gave Kyle, but with the crucial difference that my business model required less capital up front due to its digital nature. I maintained majority control and strategic direction, negotiating terms that allowed for rapid scaling if initial metrics proved successful. I also secured first right of refusal for subsequent funding rounds, ensuring I wouldn't be diluted out of my own company if we needed additional capital. With funding secured, I assembled a specialized team for adaptive athletics while ensuring Precision Digital continued to thrive. I hired Jordan, a former fitness coach with digital marketing experience, as the project lead. Then came Daria, a UX designer who had worked with major fitness apps, poached directly from a competitor with the promise of creative control and equity options. For the technical development, I partnered with Daniel's software company, maintaining a strict professional relationship despite our personal connection. No favors, no discounts, I insisted. This needs to succeed on its own merits. He respected my position and assigned his best development team to the project. While building Adaptive Athletics, I kept careful tabs on Kyle's progress through family connections and strategic monitoring of public information. His launch was exactly what I expected. Flashy but fundamentally flawed. Premium Athletic Solutions opened with an extravagant party that made the local business news. My parents attended as honored guests, beaming with pride as Kyle cut the ribbon on his gleaming store filled with expensive inventory. The initial publicity generated decent foot traffic, and Kyle boasted about first-month sales in family text messages. But the fundamental problems in his business model quickly became apparent. By month 3, the novelty had worn off, and daily customer counts dropped precipitously. The exclusive contracts he'd signed required minimum monthly purchases regardless of sales, leading to overstock of slow-moving merchandise. The image-appropriate staff, hired more for looks than sales ability, struggled to convert browsing into purchases. The commission structure Kyle implemented incentivized pushing the most expensive items rather than what customers actually needed, resulting in returns and negative reviews. Meanwhile, Adaptive Athletics launched with minimal fanfare but a rock-solid strategy. We focused on building a core user base of serious amateur athletes, collecting data on their preferences and needs, and refining our recommendation algorithms. Rather than splashy marketing, we implemented a content strategy showcasing real results from real users, building credibility organically. By month 4, Kyle's business was showing serious signs of distress. Through Emily, I learned that he'd approached my parents for an emergency capital injection of another $100,000 to cover inventory commitments and make payroll. They provided it without question, taking out a second mortgage on their already leveraged home. Around the same time, Adaptive Athletics hit our first major milestone: 10,000 active users and positive unit economics on each customer. Our affiliate partnerships were generating consistent revenue, and the subscription coaching service had a 78% retention rate, unheard of in the fitness industry. I never directly marketed to Kyle's potential customers or attempted to sabotage his business. I didn't need to. His model was fundamentally flawed, and mine was built on solid principles. The contrast would speak for itself. By month 6, while Kyle was desperately discounting premium inventory to generate cash flow, Adaptive Athletics secured a partnership with a major athletic wear manufacturer to create a co-branded line of customized equipment based on our user data. The deal included a $250,000 advance and favorable revenue-sharing terms. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had built a more successful athletic business with less initial capital, no family support, and a completely different approach than Kyle's traditional retail model. But this wasn't just about proving my business acumen anymore. It was about showing my parents the cost of their blind favoritism, not just emotionally, but financially. As Kyle's business continued its downward spiral, my parents increased their support, financially and emotionally. Mom started working part-time at the store to reduce staffing costs. Dad spent weekends making deliveries to save on shipping. They were all in on a failing venture, their retirement security evaporating with each passing month. I watched from a distance, building my own success while they mortgaged their future on Kyle's failure. The revenge wasn't in competing with Kyle. It was in succeeding so undeniably that even they would eventually have to acknowledge it. And when they finally did, I would be in a position to decide whether they deserved my help. 9 months after its grand opening, Premium Athletic Solutions was on life support. The final blow came when one of Kyle's major suppliers filed a lawsuit for breach of contract. The exclusive distribution agreement Kyle had signed required minimum monthly orders that he'd stopped meeting 3 months earlier. The supplier was suing for $145,000 in unfulfilled commitments plus penalties. The lawsuit made the local business news, where the reporter mentioned it was the third athletic retailer to fail in that location. Kyle's carefully cultivated image of success crumbled overnight. His image-appropriate staff began jumping ship, with several filing complaints about unpaid wages. The mall management initiated eviction proceedings for 3 months of missed rent. Through it all, My parents continued trying to save the unsalvable. Dad withdrew the last of his 401k, incurring substantial penalties for early withdrawal. Mom sold her mother's jewelry, family heirlooms that should have been passed down to future generations. Their desperate attempts to prop up Kyle's failing business were painful to watch, even from a distance. Meanwhile, Adaptive Athletics was exceeding all projections. 6 months after launch, we had 50,000 active users across all 50 states. Our proprietary algorithm had become sophisticated enough to predict with 93% accuracy which equipment would best serve each athlete's needs, resulting in industry-leading conversion rates on our affiliate partnerships. The business press took notice. Adaptive Athletics was featured in Digital Innovators magazine, profiling our data-driven approach to fitness equipment and training. I was invited to speak at industry conferences about disrupting traditional retail models. Investor interest was so strong that we had to create a waitlist for our Series A funding round, ultimately raising $3 million at a $15 million valuation. As my professional reputation grew, Precision Digital continued its steady expansion as well. The two businesses operated synergistically, Precision handling digital marketing for select Adaptive Athletics partners, creating a vertically integrated approach that maximized revenue opportunities. By the 1-year mark of Adaptive Athletics' launch, we'd generated $2.4 million in revenue with healthy profit margins. Competitors were attempting to replicate our model, but our first-mover advantage and growing proprietary database of user preferences gave us a substantial lead. I had just finished a meeting with potential international partners when my phone rang with my mother's number. We hadn't spoken since a brief, awkward Christmas call 6 months earlier. I almost let it go to voicemail but decided to answer. "Amanda?" Her voice sounded thin, strained. "Do you have a minute to talk?" "I'm between meetings, but yes." "What's going on?" I kept my tone professional, detached. "It's about your father. And, well, everything." She paused. "We're in trouble, Amanda. Serious trouble." For the next 10 minutes, she outlined the extent of their financial devastation. The house was in foreclosure proceedings. Dad's retirement accounts were empty. They had maxed out credit cards trying to keep Kyle's business afloat. And now, with the lawsuit and outstanding debts, they were considering bankruptcy. "Where's Kyle in all this?" I asked. "He's struggling. The stress has been tremendous on him. He's staying with friends right now. He and your father had a falling out last week." Translation: Kyle had abandoned ship, leaving my parents to deal with the consequences of their unwavering support. "I'm sorry to hear you're going through this," I said carefully. "Financial difficulties are challenging. Amanda, we need help." Mom's voice cracked. "We're going to lose the house in 30 days unless we can come up with $76,000 for the bank. Your father's blood pressure is so high the doctor is worried about a stroke. I don't know where else to turn." The moment I had imagined, my parents finally coming to me for help, had arrived. But instead of satisfaction, I felt a complicated mix of emotions, vindication certainly, but also sadness, anger, and an unexpected pang of empathy for my mother's obvious distress. "This is a lot to process," I said finally. "I need to think about it. Please, Amanda, I know we haven't been. We should have." She struggled to find words. It was just bad luck with Kyle's business. The economy, the location. It wasn't bad luck, Mom. It was a flawed business model with inadequate market research and poor execution. And it wasn't the first time, or the second, or the third. "I know you're angry with us." "This isn't about anger," I interrupted. "This is about patterns of behavior. Years of dismissing my achievements while celebrating Kyle's failures. Years of investing in his mistakes while refusing to support my successes. That's not fair," she protested weakly. "I'll think about how I might be able to help," I said. "But I need time. And if I do help, it will be on my terms." After hanging up, I sat in my office, staring out the window at the city skyline. The revenge fantasy I'd nurtured for so long, my parents finally recognizing their mistakes and coming to me for rescue, didn't feel as satisfying as I'd imagined. Their desperation wasn't a victory. It was just sad. I called Daniel that evening and explained the situation. Part of me wants to help them because they're my parents and they're in serious trouble. Another part remembers every dismissal, every comparison, every time they chose Kyle over me. What would helping them cost you? Daniel asked practically. Financially, you can clearly afford it. But emotionally? That's what I'm trying to figure out, I admitted. If I help unconditionally, nothing changes. The pattern continues. But if I don't help at all, you're not responsible for fixing their mistakes, Daniel reminded me. But you are responsible for your own choices and how you'll feel about them long term. I scheduled an emergency session with my therapist, Dr. Rivera, the next day. For the past year, I'd been working through my family issues with her professional guidance. They've finally reached the natural consequences of their actions, Dr. Rivera observed after I explained the situation. The question is whether rescuing them serves your healing or hinders it. What do you mean? Helping from a place of obligation or hope for approval continues the unhealthy dynamic. Helping from a place of strength, with clear boundaries, might be different. For days, I reflected on what boundaries would mean in this situation. What would constitute help that maintained my dignity without enabling further dysfunction? What terms would acknowledge the past while creating possibility for a healthier future? After a week of consideration, I reached a decision. I called my mother and asked her to arrange a meeting with both her and my father, and Kyle. My office, Monday at 10 a.m. All three of you need to be there. Kyle's very busy with job interviews, she hedged. This is non-negotiable. All three of you. Or there's nothing to discuss. When Monday arrived, I prepared my office for the meeting. I chose the conference room deliberately, a space that positioned me as the professional in charge rather than the daughter seeking approval. I asked Jessica to prepare a folder of documents for each of them. They arrived together, looking diminished from their financial stress. Dad had visibly aged, his confident posture replaced by a slight stoop. Mom's carefully maintained appearance showed signs of neglect. Kyle, wearing sunglasses indoors like some disgraced celebrity, radiated resentment at being required to attend. "Thank you for coming," I began formally as they took seats across from me. "Before we discuss any potential financial assistance, we need to address the patterns that brought us to this point." Part 8. Resolution and Transformation. The tension in my company's conference room was palpable as my family sat across from me. My father's eyes darted around, taking in the modern space with its sleek furniture and wall of awards that Precision Digital had accumulated. My mother clutched her purse like a lifeline. Kyle slouched in his chair, trying to project indifference despite the desperate circumstances. "First, I want to make sure we all understand the current situation," I began, opening my laptop. "Based on the financial documents you provided, Mom, you're 3 months behind on mortgage payments. The foreclosure process has begun. You have $42,000 in credit card debt across 6 cards, all near their limits. Dad's $401k is depleted. Kyle's business has $230,000 in outstanding debts, including the lawsuit from Atlas Sportswear." Kyle shifted uncomfortably. "The lawsuit is bogus. They didn't deliver the quality they promised." I pulled up a document on the conference room screen. "According to the contract you signed, which I've reviewed, product quality complaints needed to be filed within 10 days of delivery. You accepted all shipments without formal complaints, then stopped paying 4 months later when you couldn't move the inventory. You don't understand the retail business," my father interjected, a shadow of his usual dismissive tone showing through his desperation. "Actually, I understand business fundamentals extremely well," I replied calmly, "which is why both of my companies are profitable while Kyle's ventures have consistently failed." I turned the screen to display a presentation titled Precision Digital and Adaptive Athletics Company Overview. For the next 15 minutes, I walked them through audited financial statements, growth metrics, client testimonials, and press coverage of both my businesses. Adaptive Athletics currently serves 72,000 users nationwide. Our annual revenue exceeds $2.4 million with a 22% profit margin. Precision Digital manages digital marketing for 42 clients with an annual revenue of $1.8 million and an 18% profit margin. Together, these companies employ 23 people full-time and contract with dozens more. The stunned expressions on their faces might once have given me satisfaction. Now, they just confirmed how little attention they had paid to my career. I'm showing you this not to boast, but to establish that any financial help I provide comes from a position of earned success, not luck or handouts. I built these businesses without family support, despite being told repeatedly that my ideas were unrealistic and my abilities insufficient. "We never said," my mother began. "You did," I interrupted firmly. "Dad called my business plan a pipe dream and an internet scheme. You suggested I get a real career like Kyle. You both dismissed my achievements while funding Kyle's failures repeatedly. You gave him $230,000 for his latest venture, after giving him at least $50,000 for each previous failed business. That's what parents do," my father protested. "They help their children." "One child," I corrected. "You helped one child. The other one succeeded despite you. Not because of you." I pulled out 3 folders and slid them across the table. These contain my proposed terms for financial assistance. They opened the folders simultaneously. My mother gasped slightly as she read the first page. "This is what I'm prepared to offer," I explained. "I will pay off the back payments on your mortgage and bring it current. I will negotiate with your credit card companies to reduce the total debt and pay the agreed amount. In exchange, there are conditions all 3 of you must accept." I turned to Kyle. "You will take an entry-level position at Adaptive Athletics. Salary is $42,000 annually with standard benefits. You'll work directly under Jordan, our project manager, with no special treatment. You'll learn digital marketing, customer service, and data analysis. Your performance will be evaluated quarterly like any other employee." Kyle's face flushed with anger. "You expect me to work for my little sister? As some kind of what punishment?" "As an opportunity," I corrected. "One you haven't earned but are being offered anyway. Every other employee at my companies was hired based on merit, experience, and potential. You're being offered a position despite your track record. Your alternative is bankruptcy and possible legal consequences for the debts you've incurred." I turned to my parents. "Mom and Dad, you'll attend family therapy sessions. I've identified a therapist who specializes in family dynamics and financial trauma. The minimum commitment is weekly sessions for 6 months." "We don't need therapy," my father protested. "We need financial help." "You need both," I said firmly. "The financial problems are symptoms of deeper issues. Your willingness to risk your retirement and home for Kyle's ventures while dismissing my success indicates patterns that need addressing." "And the third condition?" my mother asked quietly. "Public acknowledgement. You've publicly praised Kyle's failures while ignoring my successes for years. That changes now. Dad, you'll write a letter to the extended family acknowledging the favoritism shown to Kyle and recognizing my business accomplishments. Both of you will attend the Regional Business Awards next month, where I'm receiving the Entrepreneur of the Year award." The silence that followed was heavy with years of unspoken emotions. "This is ridiculous," Kyle finally said. "You're using our situation to humiliate us." "No," I replied calmly. "I'm establishing boundaries and accountability, something this family has lacked for decades." "And if we refuse these conditions?" my father asked. "Then you'll face foreclosure and bankruptcy without my assistance. I'm not obligated to rescue you from consequences of your choices. I'm offering help with terms that address the root issues, not just the financial symptoms." They asked for time to discuss privately. I directed them to an empty office and returned to my work. An hour later, they came back looking subdued. "We accept your terms," my father said with difficulty. "All of them. With one request," my mother added. "Could the family therapy include you as well? If we're going to address these issues, we should all participate." The request surprised me. It showed a level of insight I hadn't expected. "Yes," I agreed after a moment's consideration. "I'll participate in the family sessions." The following weeks tested everyone's commitment. Kyle's first days at Adaptive Athletics were predictably rough. He arrived late, complained about tasks he considered beneath him, and tried to charm his way out of actual work. Jordan, to her credit, treated him exactly like any other entry-level employee. He has potential if he'd stop trying to take shortcuts, she reported after his first month. He has good people skills when he's not being arrogant, and he's picking up the analytics faster than I expected. The family therapy sessions were emotionally grueling. Dr. Martinez, the therapist, didn't allow anyone to hide behind excuses or deflections. Robert, she addressed my father in our third session. You've mentioned several times that you were just supporting Kyle's entrepreneurial spirit. But Amanda also showed entrepreneurial drive. Why was your response so different? Kyle is. He's like me, Dad admitted reluctantly. I see myself in him. His dreams felt familiar. Amanda's interests were always so different. Different meaning less valuable? Dr. Martinez pressed. I didn't understand them, he acknowledged after a long pause. The digital stuff. It seemed insubstantial compared to tangible products. These revelations weren't easy for anyone. My mother broke down in our fifth session, admitting she had enabled the favoritism because it was easier than confronting my father's biases. Kyle struggled to accept his role in the family dynamics, initially blaming everyone else for his failures. The breakthrough came unexpectedly during Kyle's third month at Adaptive Athletics. He had been assigned to analyze customer feedback data, a task he'd initially dismissed as administrative busywork. During a team meeting, he presented findings that identified a pattern none of us had noticed: a specific subset of users who were underserved by our current offerings. If we developed specialized programming for collegiate athletes transitioning to recreational status, there's a significant market opportunity, he explained, showing slides he'd prepared on his own initiative. They have advanced skills but decreasing time commitment. Their equipment needs are distinctive. The room fell silent, genuinely impressed by his analysis and presentation. Jordan gave him the lead on developing this market segment, his first real responsibility. The project succeeded beyond expectations, adding a valuable revenue stream to the business. That night, Kyle called me. I get it now, he said without preamble. What you built. How hard it is. I thought business was about big ideas and charisma, but it's about doing the work consistently, solving real problems for real people. Yes, I agreed simply. I've never actually earned anything before, he admitted. Everything was given to me. The irony is, I'm more proud of this small project I earned than all the businesses Mom and Dad handed me. Meanwhile, my parents faced the difficult task of downsizing. Even with my financial assistance covering their immediate crisis, their retirement funds were depleted. They sold their large suburban home and moved to a modest condo, adjusting to a significantly reduced lifestyle. The letter my father wrote to the extended family was clearly difficult for him to compose. He showed me a draft before sending it, and I was surprised by its forthright acknowledgement of the past. For years, we favored our son while dismissing our daughter's accomplishments, he had written. We funded Kyle's ventures while refusing even minimal support for Amanda's business plans. This wasn't just unfair, it was poor judgment. Amanda has built 2 successful companies without our help, showing determination and business acumen we failed to recognize. We're learning from our mistakes, though the lesson has come at great cost. The Regional Business Award ceremony marked a public turning point. My parents attended, as promised, sitting at my company's table alongside my team. When my name was announced for Entrepreneur of the Year, they stood and applauded with genuine pride. My father's eyes glistened with tears as I delivered my acceptance speech. Success is built on resilience, I told the audience. On believing in yourself when others don't. On trusting your vision even when conventional wisdom says you're wrong. Every entrepreneur faces rejection and skepticism. What matters is having the courage to continue anyway. A year after our conference room confrontation, our family gathered for a very different Thanksgiving. We met at my home, a decision that symbolically acknowledged the shift in family dynamics. Kyle arrived with his new girlfriend, a software engineer he'd met through work connections. My parents brought modest dishes that reflected their new financial reality. We had all changed. Kyle had earned his first promotion at Adaptive Athletics, now managing the collegiate transition program he'd developed. My parents had adjusted to their downsized lifestyle with gradually increasing grace. I had learned to set boundaries without using success as a weapon. After dinner, my father asked for everyone's attention. He raised his glass with a hand that trembled slightly. "I want to toast my daughter," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "Amanda, a year ago we sat in your office as financial and emotional bankrupts. You could have turned us away. God knows we deserved it after how we treated you. Instead, you offered tough love and a path forward." He took a steadying breath. "I was wrong about so many things. Wrong to dismiss your dreams. Wrong to favor your brother. Wrong to measure success by my narrow standards rather than by character and determination. Your mother and I failed you as parents, but you didn't fail us when we needed you. That says everything about who you are." My mother wiped tears as she added, "We're still learning, still making mistakes, but we're trying to earn the second chance you've given us. Not just financially, but as a family." Kyle stood next. "To my sister, who gave me the one thing our parents never did, consequences and accountability. I hated you for it at first. Now I understand it was the first real opportunity I ever had." As I looked around the table at my imperfect, evolving family, I realized that true success wasn't measured by business achievements or financial statements. It wasn't even measured by finally receiving the recognition I'd craved for so long. True success was found in the integrity with which I'd navigated adversity, the strength I'd developed through challenges, and the wisdom to offer conditional reconciliation rather than permanent rejection. "Family isn't just about blood," I responded, raising my own glass. "It's about respect, about celebrating each other's genuine successes and helping each other learn from failures. It's about boundaries and accountability, not blind support or baseless criticism. We've all learned that lesson the hard way. Here's to building something better together." Our journey wasn't complete. The therapy sessions continued. Old patterns occasionally resurfaced, but fundamental shifts had occurred that couldn't be undone. My parents now treated me as an accomplished adult rather than a perpetual disappointment. Kyle was earning his way rather than expecting handouts. And I had found power in setting terms rather than seeking approval. Sometimes the best revenge isn't punishment but transformation. Creating such undeniable success that those who dismissed you must confront their misjudgment, while offering them a path to become better themselves. Not for their sake, but for your own. Have you ever experienced favoritism in your family? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more about navigating difficult family dynamics and building success against the odds. Share with someone who might need encouragement to believe in themselves even when others don't. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the people who should believe in you the most are the last to recognize your worth, but that doesn't determine your value or potential for success.